Hello dear children, welcome back. I'm Dr. Jisha Jo. In this video, we shall study about the different types of WBCs and their functions. The white blood cells or WBCs are also called as leukocytes. Leukocytes. And what about the shape? If you look at the shape of WBCs, they are amoeboid in shape. Amoeboid in shape. Next point, they have a nucleus. They have nucleus. The WBCs have nucleus. But they do not have hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is absent in WBCs. And their number is from 4,000 to 8,000 per cubic millimeter of blood. So these are the important features that we should know about the WBCs. WBCs are otherwise called as the leukocytes. They are amoeboid in shape. When we compare the RBC with the WBC, we know RBCs are biconcave disc shaped, whereas the WBCs are amoeboid in shape. Here, WBCs have nucleus, but RBCs are enucleated. That means in the young stage they have the nucleus, but when they mature they lose their nucleus. And in the previous video we have seen why the RBCs lose their nucleus when they mature. Then another difference between the RBC and WBC is that in RBC we saw the respiratory pigment, which is the hemoglobin, is present, whereas in WBC no hemoglobin is present. And the number per cubic millimeter of blood, in the case of RBC it was about 4.5 million to 5 million RBCs per cubic millimeter of blood, where when we come to WBCs we can see that the number ranges from 4,000 to 8,000 per cubic millimeter of blood. Another important feature of WBCs is that they can perform diapedesis. Diapedesis. Now, what is diapedesis? Okay, diapedesis is the squeezing out of the WBCs through the walls of the capillaries. So suppose this is the capillary. I'm just drawing the capillary. We know the capillaries are very thin walled, have only one cell thick wall, that is the wall of the capillary. And you can see the blood flowing through the capillary. It has the plasma in it, it has the RBCs in it, it will have the WBCs and the platelets inside it. So that is the RBC I am drawing there. That is the WBC I am drawing there. We know WBCs are amoeboid in shape, they have the nucleus, and we can also show the plasma there. That is the plasma, that is the platelets there, which I have marked in green. So this is the plasma, that is the fluid that is present inside in the blood is the plasma. The green color structure which I have marked in green is the platelets, blood platelets or the thrombocytes. This is the WBC and this is the RBC. Okay, now during diapedesis, what happens? I'm just redrawing the figure. What happens during diapedesis? That is the wall of the capillary. Okay. During diapedesis, you can see that the WBC squeezes out through the thin wall of the capillary. That is, you can see the WBC squeezing out through the thin wall. That is the WBC squeezing out through the thin wall. That is the WBC. This process of squeezing out of the WBCs through the thin wall of the capillary is called as diapedesis. So only the WBCs or the leukocytes can perform diapedesis. RBCs do not perform the process of diapedesis. What is diapedesis? The squeezing out, not oozing out. This is squeezing out of WBC. The term oozing out is wrong. Oozing out occurs when there is a cut or an injury, the oozing out of blood or oozing out of the plant sap, the process of bleeding which we have studied. So that is oozing out. But here this is not oozing out. That is wrong. If you write oozing out, it is wrong. It is the squeezing out. Squeezing out of the WBCs through the walls of the capillaries. Okay, and so after diapedesis, you can see the WBC has squeezed out. Okay, when does this process take place? When there is a disease causing germ present in the intercellular fluid or the tissue fluid, you can see the WBCs squeezing out. Now here you can see the WBC has entirely squeezed out. So here I am drawing a germ there. Okay, that is the germ or a foreign body that has entered into our body. The WBC squeezing out, you can see, that is diapedesis. In the third diagram, you can see that just like the amoeba, the WBCs also put forth pseudopodia and engulfs the disease causing germ or bacteria. That is the pseudopodia that is put forth there by the WBCs, which engulf. You can see the disease causing germ has been engulfed by the WBCs. Okay, so that is the nucleus there. And the germ or the foreign body will be engulfed and digested and destroyed by the WBCs. In this process of engulfing, the bacteria or the disease causing germ is called as phagocytosis. Phagocytosis. Okay, so once again, two terms are important here, diapedesis and phagocytosis. Diapedesis is the process of squeezing out of the WBCs through the walls of the capillaries. And phagocytosis is the process of engulfing the disease-causing germs or bacteria or foreign particles by the WBC. That is called as phagocytosis. So I hope the term diapedesis and phagocytosis is clear to you. Now we shall move on to the different types of WBCs. Okay, now based on the presence or absence of granules, WBCs are classified into two. Okay. When granules are present, they are called granulated WBCs or granular WBCs. Granular WBCs. And when granules are absent, they are non-granular WBCs. So it is based on the presence or absence of granules. WBCs are classified into two, granular WBCs and non-granular or agranular WBCs. So point, granules present. Another important feature here, granules absent. Now, another important feature regarding the nucleus is that in granular WBCs, the nucleus is lobed. Lobed nucleus is seen, whereas in non-granular WBCs, nucleus is not lobed. Nucleus is not lobed in non-granular WBCs. So, based on the presence or absence of granules, WBCs are classified into two, granular WBCs and non-granular WBCs. In granular WBCs, granules are present, whereas in non-granular WBC, granules are absent. Second point of difference between the two is that in granular WBCs, the nucleus is lobed, whereas in non-granular WBCs, you can see the nucleus is not lobed. Now the granular WBCs are again classified into three. They are the neutrophils, eosinophils and basophils. As the name indicates, neutrophils are stained using neutral dyes. Eosinophils are stained using acidic dyes. And basic dyes are used to stain basophils. Now, this classification of the granular WBCs into the neutrophils, eosinophils and basophils is based on the number of lobes of the nucleus. Okay, now coming to the neutrophils, I am just drawing the three. You can see the neutrophil, that is amoeboid in shape, so just drawing, that is the neutrophil. And since it is granular WBCs, these are the granules present. If you look at the nucleus is 3 to 4 lobed. See? That is the nucleus there, that is 3 to 4 lobed nucleus. You can see in the case of neutrophils. Now when we move on to the eosinophils, drawing the eosinophil again. Okay. It is also granulated, but you can see the granules are little more bigger in size. Okay. And the nucleus is 2 lobed. You can see the 2 lobes of the nucleus. 2 lobed nucleus. 2 lobed. Okay. Now moving on to the basophils. That is the basophil there. Okay. It is also granulated. Granules are present. Okay. When we come to the nucleus is indistinctly lobed. That is, the number of lobes of the nucleus is not distinct. We cannot clearly distinguish the number of lobes of the nucleus, that is indistinctly lobed. So that is with regard to the 3 types of granular WBCs, the neutrophils, eosinophils and basophils. Neutrophils have 3 to 4 lobed nucleus, eosinophils have 2 lobed nucleus and basophils have indistinctly lobed nucleus. Now when we go on to the non-granular WBCs, we have already seen the nucleus is not lobed. The non-granular WBCs are classified into 2. They are the lymphocytes and the monocytes. Okay. Now the lymphocytes, it is the lymphocyte I am going to draw. Okay. The nucleus is a single large nucleus. Nucleus occupies almost the entire space of the cell. Okay, that is the large nucleus there, which I have drawn in red. That is the single large nucleus. Single large nucleus is present. And moving on to the monocyte. It is the monocyte there. Okay. The nucleus is bean shaped or kidney shaped. You can see the bean shape or the kidney shape of the nucleus. Kidney shaped. Okay. And one more thing that what you have to remember here is that the lymphocytes are the smallest among the WBCs. They have a single large nucleus, but they are the smallest among the WBCs. So once again, moving on to the classification, WBCs are classified into two: granular WBCs and non-granular WBCs. Granular WBCs are classified into three based on the number of lobes of the nucleus and based on the type of stain that is used to stain them. Neutrophils are stained by neutral dyes. They have 3 to 4 lobed nucleus. Eosinophils are stained using acidic dyes and they have 2 lobed nucleus. Basophils are stained using basic dyes. They have indistinctly lobed nucleus. The number of lobes cannot be counted or distinguished in the case of basophils. Now moving on to the neutrophils. Neutrophils are classified into two: the lymphocytes and the monocytes. Lymphocytes have a single large nucleus, whereas the monocytes have kidney-shaped nucleus. Both are non-granular WBCs. And among the WBCs, the lymphocytes are the smallest. So these are the characteristic features of the WBCs and the classification of the WBCs. Now moving on to the functions of each of the WBCs, you can see the neutrophils are concerned with phagocytosis. Phagocytosis we have already seen when a disease causing germ enters into our body. The neutrophils, we have seen the WBCs, especially it is the neutrophils that undergo phagocytosis, that is they squeeze out through the walls of the capillaries into the tissue fluid and they engulf the disease-causing germ. That is the process of phagocytosis will take place. Now, moving on to the eosinophils. Eosinophils also have the capacity for phagocytosis and also they secrete antitoxins. What are antitoxins? When a disease-causing germ or a bacteria or any bacterium enters into our body, it produces toxins. Okay, and in response to that, or in reaction to the toxins produced by the foreign body, our body produces antitoxins which react against the toxins produced by the foreign substance. So the eosinophils are also involved in the production of antitoxins. Okay, antibodies that are produced in our body act as antitoxins there. Okay, now moving on to the another important feature of eosinophil, another very important feature is that the number of the eosinophil count increases when there is an allergic situation prevailing in our body. It will lead to an increase in count of the eosinophils. Okay, now moving on to the basophils. Basophils are concerned with inflammation. When there is an inflammation in our body, at the region of inflammation, we can see the same process that is diapedesis and phagocytosis taking place, leading to the destruction and the killing up of the disease-causing germ or the bacterium, as well as the damaged cells are even engulfed by the WBCs there. Okay, now moving on to the lymphocytes, you can see lymphocytes are involved in the production of antibodies, and monocytes, again, they are concerned with the process of engulfing the disease-causing germ. So once again, I am just concluding with the functions, that is coming to the neutrophils. The function of the neutrophils is to undergo phagocytosis, or the process of phagocytosis, that is the engulfing or ingestion of the disease-causing germ is normally done by the neutrophils. They perform diapedesis and phagocytosis. Eosinophils, what you have to remember is that they are concerned with the engulfing of the bacteria. Second point, they produce antitoxin, that is the antibodies actually act as antitoxins, which function or which react against the toxins that are produced by the disease-causing germ or the foreign substance that has entered into our body. And also remember that the eosinophil count increases during allergic situations. Now moving on to the basophils. Basophils release chemicals called histamines during or at the time of inflammation. When inflammation takes place in our body, histamines are released and the basophils actually undergo the process of diapetesis and phagocytosis, engulfing the disease-causing germ as well as the damaged cells of our body. Now, moving on to the lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are involved in the production of antibodies, and monocytes again perform phagocytosis. So, these are the important functions of the WBCs. Now let us have a look at the origin and the life of WBCs. WBCs have their origin in the bone marrow and the lymph nodes, and sometimes in the liver and the spleen. The average lifespan of WBCs is 2 weeks, and the old, worn out or damaged WBCs are destroyed in the liver and the spleen. So once again, the origin, where does it originate? It has its origin in the bone marrow, lymph nodes, or sometimes in the liver and spleen. The average lifespan is 2 weeks, and the destruction of the damaged WBCs occur in the liver and the spleen. Now, we have already seen that the number of WBCs is 4,000 to 8,000 per cubic millimeter of blood. When there is an abnormal increase in this number, this will lead to a condition called leukemia. Leukemia is a condition when there is an abnormal increase in the number of WBCs. And when there is an abnormal decrease in the number of WBCs, this will lead to a condition called leukopenia. So the two terms you should know: leukemia is an abnormal increase in the number of WBCs, and leukopenia is an abnormal decrease in the number of WBCs. So in this session, we have seen the different characteristic features of WBCs. We have seen the classification of WBCs, and also we have come across the functions of WBCs. So I hope this session is clear to you. If you have any doubts or suggestions, please ask your doubts and give your suggestions in the comment section. Thank you.